It is Tuesday night, and I'm Jeff Goodman, pleased to be joined by the Miller brothers, Sean and Archie Miller. I think we'll start with Sean, the elder statesman, and then intro the young one. Young, I don't know if we can call you young, Arch, but
I'm an old soul.
You are an old soul, but you're young, at least compared to the other guy next to you. All right, we got plenty to talk about tonight, and let's get right into it and talk about the North Carolina Tar Heels, which go on the road. And as Roy Williams always does, right? He goes on the road early in the year in a non-conference game. A lot of times it's the first game of the year, and he plays a good mid-major on the road, which seldom happens in college basketball. And Hubert Davis is the beneficiary of this in his rookie year as a head coach. And boy, they almost come up short. They pull away late against the College of Charleston. Tough place to play because, you go out for a good meal. You might take a walk. You might go to the beach. There's a lot of things to kind of distract you in Charleston. And maybe that was the case, but this is the second straight one, guys, that Carolina has not looked great and the guards haven't looked great. How concerned are you, Sean, when you look at Hubert Davis implementing kind of a new system here? He's not playing the necessarily two traditional bigs that Roy has played over the course of his coaching career. Is it just going to take time?
Well, Jeff, there's a lot of ways early in the year that you improve your team. Sometimes it's playing at home, being the heavy favorite to develop confidence in a young group. Confidence is a big part of sports, period. In the month of November, you want to develop confidence. There's another way to do it, and that's simply to do what Carolina did tonight, where you travel on the road. Keep it in mind, you have a lot of players on your team that a year ago played in front of very few spectators, if at all, right? So when you look at the backcourt of Caleb Love and RJ Davis, to take those two guys on the road, let them lead their team and leave with a victory, whether that's by 2 or 20, that's a completely different feeling of developing confidence. Because we talked last week on the show, what's the hardest thing to do in college basketball? Win on the road. And I think when you develop a confidence that you can go in front of the other team's student section without, the powder blue fans and seats, I think it has a funny way of working to your advantage as the competition continues to stiffen as you move into December and certainly the ACC.
Yeah, I think with these guards, we expected them to take a big jump from their freshman year to sophomore year because generally that's what happens, right, Arch? Freshman year to sophomore year is that time when you expect them and you hope that they make that jump. And I think they will, but certainly so far they look susceptible to an upset. They haven't beaten Brown. They gave up, I think, 50 to them at the half and had to squeak out a win there. And now you're talking about they got to go to Mohegan-Sun this weekend and deal with a Purdue team that just beat Wright State by about 100 and have arguably the best 1-2 inside punch, and they don't play together, and Zach Edey and Trevion Williams of anybody in the country.
Yeah, I think that, North Carolina, those two young guards are both very good players. Caleb had a good game tonight. He got 12 free throws, scored over 20 points. And RJ, the game prior to that, bailed him out with, I believe, 25 plus. He can really shoot the ball. I think the thing that's going to be interesting with those two guys, sometimes when you make that big jump from freshman to sophomore year, the system you don't learn again, and with the change of Coach Williams going to Coach Hubert Davis, are they learning a new philosophy? I think if you watch the game tonight, there's not as much numbered break. There's some more set plays than their normal. They're not running their normal passing game and their motion. They're a little bit more structured. So they're learning again. And anytime as a player, you got to go through that new roster. You got to learn a new style a little bit. There could be some growing pains with that, but both guys are really good players. And I think they're only going to get better with the game they had tonight. Sean mentioned playing on the road, but when you're North Carolina and you're playing Charleston in Charleston, that's an incredible hot box to play in for those guys. So for them to be able to get the win, that's a great momentum builder. And as they get ready to play this weekend, especially against Purdue, I think the awareness will be up. But they're a new team. They have Manick in there, Dawson Garcia in there. It really will come down to this, though, with North Carolina, Jeff. Armando Bacot he's, arguably a player of the year type of guy in the ACC, and he delivered tonight with 24, and he's going to have to show up big time this weekend against Purdue.
Hey, Sean, do you care how many points you win by at the end of the day as a coach? I mean, or is it just, again, hey, we got the win. We don't care how we got it. I know when you're breaking down film, you're obviously looking at things to learning points and to get better. But how much is it just an exhale, especially like you said on the road?
Well, it depends the situation. Obviously, the goal is to win, and also, Jeff, play well, right? If you win and you don't play well and you don't address it, a lot of times, that's that fool's gold that exists. You watch that same team a week later, and they lay an egg. And you almost saw it coming in the last previous win. So you want to win, you want to play well. But look, there's nothing free right now in November and December in college basketball. I think it's one of the things that not everybody is on the same page with or understands as much as the coaches that are coaching the game. How much you win by does matter. Now, if you look at the analytics, Ken Palm is one. There's several. One of the things that each of those analytics rewards is quality of play, regardless of who you play. And if you're supposed to beat somebody by 18 and you beat them by 40, it helps your analytics. And trust me, because of the competitive nature of making this NCAA tournament with 6th-year seniors and in the age of college basketball, maybe the oldest it's been in some time, it's not going to be between 5 or 6 teams who's going to get those last bids. It's going to be between more 10 and 12 teams or 12 to 15 teams. So to answer your question, if you can win by 50 and you do it respectfully, right, and you played great and you make a statement, then do it. I think the days of worrying about that have ended, simply because you're rewarded for beating a team you're supposed to beat badly. You're rewarded for doing that.
Well, Houston beat Virginia by 20, which is kind of like beating Virginia by 50 because of the way those two teams score. And that's a hell of a win for Houston. Although I have said it in the preseason, every year I talk to Tony Bennett and he tries to kind of diffuse any expectations, right? Temper them. We're not that good. I don't know how good we are. And usually I'm like, come on, Tony. Like, I know you got Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome. I know you're pretty good this year. But this year, honestly, most people couldn't name more than one guy on this team, Kihei Clark. That's it. They got Jaden Gardner, the transfer from ECU. Nobody's seen him play in person. Nobody. So this is a team that, honestly, I really felt like had a chance to finally slip. I mean, 7 of the last 8 years, guys, Tony Bennett's team has finished first or second in the ACC.
It's amazing.
His record crushes Coach K, Roy, Boeheim. It's like 15 games better over the last 8 years than K's. It's like 25 better than Roy's and like 30 something better than Boeheim's. It's amazing. But I think this is finally the time that he falls off a little bit. And you wonder if it is part of the transfer game, right? He lost some guys. Abdul Rahim, he transferred. He had other guys kind of transfer out that didn't wait their turn. And this team just, honestly, you watch him against Houston, and they were absolutely manhandled, out-toughed. And this Houston team was playing without one of their better players, Tremont Mark. Like he might be their second best scorer after Marcus Sasser. So, Arch, surprised at all about Virginia? Worried?
I'm not surprised. I mean, I think they're a work in progress. They have a completely new roster on the floor. The 2 transfers, adding Armand Franklin, the kid from ECU, being 2 of their better guys, never being a part of their offense or their defense, that's going to be an adjustment. But their other guys are stepping into all new roles. But, this is the name of the game in college basketball. It's roster management. You could have a great roster one year, and the next thing you know, between the NBA, the transfer portal, your team completely flips. And I think Virginia's in that flip mode right now where they're going to have to grow this team. And here's the thing about, Virginia, regardless of what they're doing right now, you have to assume with great confidence that come January and February, they're going to continue to get better and better and better. They're not going to change much. They're only going to get more experience. Playing a game like this will probably really help them. And they'll be right in the hunt of things in the ACC as things get going, because that's what a great staff and program do. They stick with it. They believe in what they do. And Virginia is probably a model for believing in what you do, but they definitely have a reset, and they're going to have to work in progress, especially I think offensively. Defensively, they're going to get their deal down and they're going to be tough, but offensively, they're going to have to, figure a way out how to score tonight. Turnovers was a big deal. They had 12, I think, in the first half. If you watch Virginia play over the course of his tenure year, they don't turn it over about 12 times a game, let alone 12 and a half. So they're going to have to get a little bit more efficient with their offense, but they ran into a buzzsaw tonight as well. Houston's a great defensive team, great road environment for them to go into. And that was going to be a tough game for anybody who played in there tonight.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. One thing I would say about Virginia, it's too early to judge them completely. We all know they will improve as the year goes on. But I thought the storyline of the Houston Virginia game tonight was more how good Houston is. I mean, Marcus Sasser, you talk about a two-way player, a guy that does it on offense and defense. Really, there's a term two-way player, right, that we just talked about. He's somebody that can beat you with his defense and his offense. Houston is like a two-way team. On given nights, they can be impossible to score against, and that's why they winning on the road. In conference play comes down to a lot of games like that. But offensively, they have some answers as well. They were a Final Four team a year ago, and they're picking right up where they left off. They will be a tough out. They're on the beginning quest of having a great season. I was really impressed with Houston.
No, they're terrific. And you're talking about two of the better coaches around the country and those two guys. And you're right. I mean, you can't be dumb and give up on a Tony Bennett team, but you look at him and you say, if he can do it with this team, can we just put him in the Hall of Fame like tomorrow? If he can get this team first or second in the ACC, don't make him wait. Just throw him in there at the end of the year because, again, those bigs, maybe they'll come and they probably will get better. I just don't know if it's the talent that we've been accustomed to for Tony Bennett. And again, what can you say about Kelvin Sampson? Final Four last year. And they're a team that certainly, I think, can compete, with Memphis, and they'll get back to the tournament. They play tough. We know that. The big question I have for Houston is, again, do they have enough scoring with Sasser? Right now, Sasser's the guy. He made some crazy, contested, difficult, lower percentage shots tonight. Is that what you want to rely on? You're going to rely on
the one thing about Houston tonight, Jeff, is they got 9 made threes by Edwards and Sasser. Two guys make 9 threes combined. That's pretty good right there, in terms of firepower. But the thing that Houston does, man, they the glass, the rebounding, the way that they play, they're always going to be right there. And but those two guards shot it tonight, which was impressive.
All right, let's move on to the big story of the day. As we've got this Michigan game, Michigan-Seton Hall game kind of wrapping up here at the end.
Oh, it looks like the Seton Hall is going to win it. I tell you
Seton
what,
Hall up 1.
Yeah, team that hung in there. And this will be one of the best road victories of the non-conference season here. If they hold
Kevin
on.
Willard, give this guy credit. 5 years into his tenure at Seton Hall. How about this, guys? There was like a come to Jesus moment with him and the AD, and I believe his agent, and it was like close. Do we go in a different direction? And he and his then AD were super close, and they talked about it, and they decided, you know what, we're going to stick with him. We trust in him, and ever since then, they've been unbelievable. He has completely, and you guys know how hard a job that Seton Hall job is. That is not an easy job by any means. Recruiting to Newark, New Jersey, not the easiest thing to do. And he's done it. And you're right. You get this win. It's probably as good a win because, again, I put so much more value into these road wins than I do the neutral sites. The neutral site wins, they're good, but they aren't even close. I just went to UCLA and Gonzaga, guys. It is off. And it's been 2 years since we've seen it, right? So to have the crowds back and have people in Ann Arbor for this game against Seton Hall and those fans, this win is like, it's huge for Seton Hall, isn't it?
For sure. Hey, if Jesus was invited to that meeting, he gave some great advice to the Seton Hall athletic director, Jeff.
No question.
And what's happening and what will continue to happen. Kevin Willard is doing as good of a job running his program and coaching his team as any coach in the country. Tonight's win wasn't just a great road victory for Seton Hall. It's a great road victory for the Big East Conference. And again, as we look at November and December, the days of cheering against teams or programs in your conference are over. Seton Hall wants every Big East team to win. Every Big East team should have been cheering like crazy tonight for Seton Hall to beat Michigan. Huge victory for Seton Hall. When I watched the game tonight and Michigan was winning for most of the game, you just had a sense, though, that Seton Hall is good. They have a lot of pieces. They have a toughness about them, kind of like Houston. They have the ability to defend. They have the ability to score. They have confidence at both ends. And when you look at Seton Hall tonight was a great victory for their program.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Roden is kind of that guy. I mean, Seton Hall's had, it feels like a guy over the last few years, right? They had certainly Miles Powell, then Sandro. Now I think Jared Roden's going to be that guy. And Kevin Willard's done a great job recruiting because I don't think any of them were huge, big-time recruits. And he kind of finds these guys and develops them. And Roden was hurt to start the year, but, this was a heck of a win against, a Michigan team that we still have to remember, guys. This Michigan team, yes, they do have Hunter Dickinson. They do have Eli Brooks. But the rest of these pieces, for the most part, Brandon Johns too, but the rest of these pieces are new. They've got a new point guard who came from Coastal Carolina. You know that, Archie. They've got freshmen that, frankly, were ranked high, but we don't know how good they are. Like the rankings to me this year, other than the Chets, the Palos, the Amani Bateses, some of these other guys, I think you could throw them out the window for the most part because nobody saw these kids consistently. It's a bunch of guys ranking them that, frankly, normally they rank them calling the coaches and finding out who's really good. And that's how they come up with the rankings. Well, this time, none of you guys saw any of these kids play in person because you couldn't get out. So, Arch, do we put a lot of stock into this? Because Michigan, as much as we said Virginia's going to get better, I think Michigan's got a long way to go.
Michigan's going to get a lot better. They play really hard. That was a 50-50 game. They didn't shoot the ball well tonight from three. And I think, the difference in Michigan's team right now as they sort of take shape compared to what they were a year ago. You take Isaiah Livers, an NBA player, and in my opinion, if he doesn't get hurt at the end of the year last year, Michigan can win the national championship and should or at least been favored to get to the Final Four. They almost did it without him. You have a lottery pick in Franz Wagner. And both of those two guys at 6'7", 6'9", shooting the ball and their skill level around Dickinson, it's much different than their current team that's on the floor right now. Brandon Johns, the young freshman big who's out there with him, those guys aren't prolific perimeter players. So they're actually playing a more unconventional or traditional big lineup, which is a little unique. And then Sean D. Brown and Mike Smith, both of those two guys, old, strong, great role guys around those guys last year that fit in perfect. And I think their team is going to develop. They're playing freshmen. They're going to have to find a way to shoot the ball from the three a little bit better than they did tonight. I think they may have been about 3 for 14 or 15. They're going to need a couple guys to emerge like Terrence Williams or whatnot, but they're not the same team that they were a year ago. And I don't think anybody should be looking at Michigan saying what they are right now is what they should be projected to do at the end of the season. It was a much different team a year ago that took the floor, a lot of firepower. And, to me, they're going to get better. They're going to get older. But tonight, Seton Hall makes 9 threes to Michigan's 3. That's a big difference in the game. And like Sean said, Seton Hall, they are just a tough bunch of guys. Kevin has a niche in recruiting. Guys have an edge. They're old school Big East guys, and they play that way, and they went and got a good win tonight. Michigan, at the end of the day, is going to have a great season, but they're not the team they were a year ago as they start the season.
Arch, were you at all, have you been surprised at the job Juwan Howard's done? Because I've said it for years, a lot of these NBA guys come in and they don't work as hard as a lot of the college guys, especially when they have 100 million plus in the bank. It's not their livelihood on the line as much. Juwan's done a great job, took over, had some good players from Beeline, has a great brand, put together a good staff, all of that. Were you surprised? Because I was thinking most guys in the Big Ten didn't want to see Ed Cooley hired more than they didn't want to see Juwan Howard at the time. Now completely different.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at Juwan coming in the door. I think Coach Beeline had 3 teams that competed to get to the Final Four before he got there. He left a group of stable winners. Isaiah Livers was a freshman in the national championship game when he got him. He ended up being able to convince Wagner to come, and he kept a core group early together. Those guys are still somewhat together. And what he did was, I thought it was a great deal, and his style, it really complemented what Coach Beeline had already been doing. Their style of play and how he was playing, to me, really fit with the way that those guys had played before. And as they've gotten in year 1 to 2, I think what Juwan has done a great job with is he's brought a little bit of that Miami Heat competitive flavor to a Michigan brand that's a little bit unique. They have an edge about them. They have a toughness. They're very competitive. And I think that's one thing that's not going away. But the thing Juwan's done a great job of, he's done a great job of recruiting. He has made that something that no one is going to say, hey, Juwan Howard has to get his feet on the ground before you're going to be able to do that. He's hit it running. He's got a good staff. He's bringing in good players. And at the end of the day, Michigan is in great hands. But I'm not surprised at all at the end of the day that he's doing a great job. I think his starting point with some of the pieces that he inherited helped along the way. But there's no question you got to win with the guys that you have. And he's done that.
Yeah, and that's huge, Sean, right? I mean, when you take over a program, you need momentum quickly. You were able to get it because of a kid named Derek Williams.
Thank God. No, that's right. No question. Yeah. That's a story for another day. But look, coaching change happens. The new coach has a greater ability to be successfully long-term if on day one he can inherit quality players. Like if his first group, his first team, when he goes to that first practice, he has a group that's been there before and done it, that has won, maybe a couple of all-conference players, one all-conference player, a few younger players that can really be with him for the next 3 or 4 years.
Like
that's essential. If that's not in place today, the lack of momentum, it's just, you don't have as much time as you once did, Jeff. Let's say it like that, right? No coach has as much time as they once did. And to be able to inherit a group that's solid, that's been there and done it. I think Arch made a really good point. Let's give John Beeline a lot of credit for not only what he did at Michigan, but the team he actually left, for these guys, Juwan and his staff, to come in and coach. And then, then it's up to Juwan. He's done an equally excellent job, recruiting and going. But that beginning stage, you're talking about Hubert Davis earlier, and I know a lot's been said about them changing the style. I hope he doesn't change the style too much, right? That's a style that's worked for a long, long period of time. And I think what you'll see is, for the most part, things will remain the same. And then he'll put maybe a few tweaks, on maybe a style that better fits his personality or moving forward. But what is the gift that was left to him is roster. He has the opportunity to get off to a quality start. And when you have the ability to get off to a quality start and get momentum, it's funny how you can
All right, now,
keep going year 2, 4, 5 and not look back. For sure.
What's it like? Because Hubert is dealing with now, pleased to be joined by Memphis freshman. I mean, Roy Williams. You replaced a legend. There's a little bit of time there in between, but not much, from Lute Olson. And I know better than anybody, being an Arizona alum, it was a complete train wreck. From Kevin O'Neill, and we won't get into all that. But it was not easy. But what was that like for you? How do you navigate that with a guy like, Lute Olson,
Appreciate you
it's a
joining
little bit different because at least Roy knows
us.
Hubert,
Field
right?
68
Hubert
after dark.
was,
Good to see
was
you.
coaching with
And
Lute
hopefully
Olson
I'll
so
see you
long.
soon.
So
Yes, sir.
you
Thank you.
didn't have that relationship with Lute Olson.
Right. Coach Olson was always great to me. And I think he valued the program. If you're going to put your heart and soul into a community, into a university, into a college basketball program for 23 years, the last thing you want to see it do is fail. You want to see it continue to have success. So the support that Coach Olson always gave me and the program, it allowed us to continue on when we had the success. But inheriting a great roster, I think, is a storyline to a lot of coaching changes this year. Even John Shire, I think, as you look at how he's recruiting for next season, and you look at the group of guys that he has right now, the number one thing that he inherits is a great roster, and that roster can really present a lot of momentum towards him being successful for the long haul.
How about this score, guys? And Sean, you will be shocked by this score. BYU 52 in Eugene, Oregon 31. How about that? Talk about a road win, a good road win, if that holds up, which, again, you're talking 13 minutes left in the game. I think Mark Pope is one of the more underrated coaches in the country. I've said this for years. He's done a great job there. He brings kind of a dynamic personality, a lot of energy to the team, and they're an older team. I mean, Oregon's
Jeff,
right now, please.
Jeff, you have BYU if they finish this deal off tonight.
After
with
dark,
Oregon,
good to see
they
you.
will have beaten San
And
sir,
Diego
hopefully I'll see
State
you
and
soon.
Oregon
Yes, sir.
in the
Thank you.
first 2 weeks of the season.
Boy.
I would argue that they're arguably a top 5 to top 10 team right now with those 2 wins early in the year.
And
I
Archie,
agree.
how it works too, Jeff. What happens is you start looking at those automatic bids, right? And everyone loves to say we're nowhere close to March. November and December mean more to March than any other 2 months.
Totally.
Because who you play
Yep.
and who you beat puts not only you in a different category, it puts the conference that you're in a different category. So, for example, when you look at BYU and they have, a top 20 win over San Diego State, and they're playing in Portland against Oregon, who's going to be a very good team, all of a sudden you start saying, for the most part, entering January, they're going to be a hard team to prevent getting into the NCAA tournament. That's one less spot.
Yeah.
And that's why scheduling, and we talked about this last week a lot, Arch, having a great home court in November and December, so that when you play a team, that you get your best effort, not only from your team, but the best atmosphere you can get from your arena. I'll tell you right now, if UCLA played Villanova with a 75% attendance in Pauley Pavilion, where there's a lot of people there, but it wasn't sold out and rocking, I don't know if UCLA beats Villanova at home last week. One of the keys to that victory was Pauley Pavilion was rocking. It was sold out. They inspired the team. Villanova had to leave Philadelphia, come to LA, which is not easy, play against a very, very good team in UCLA, not easy. But the third thing they had to do is they also had to go against that home crowd. And I think as you look at these games across the country, Seton Hall winning at Michigan, those are results that will be big in early March.
Yeah. And I would say this, Jeff.
All right, now
It's
pleased to be
I've
joined
been
by
there live and them moving into the Big 12. The Marriott Center in Provo is 20,000 plus when Kansas shows up, when San Diego State just showed up. BYU is a great place, and they have as good of a home court as anybody.
Yeah, and Pope's done a good job again. Listen, BYU, the word you always use with them is old, right? They're even older than usual in a way because, Barcelo comes back for what seems to be his 8th or 9th year. It's his 6th year. Tijon Lucas comes in, a 5th-year transfer who started in the Big Ten, played well at Milwaukee. Kansas was actually recruiting him out of the portal this past year. All right, now they've got some good young talent too. Caleb Lohner is a terrific young forward, sophomore. So Pope's done a great job. And like you said, John, it helps you too because BYU, Gonzaga is going to be a resume win. Now you add BYU as a resume win, and that might get St. Mary's, who could be on the fringe, right, of getting in. They're on the bubble. and then they get one maybe at home against the BYU, who's a top 10 team. And that becomes a huge resume win. What do you guys think? When I do my rankings every year, people kill me because I do them based on resume. I don't do them based on what I think necessarily. Like BYU, I would probably have them based on resume somewhere in the top 10, maybe even 5 next week, because their resume is better. Now,
Right.
Are they better? I don't know, but they've earned that ranking, in my opinion, by winning games like San Diego State, by if they hold on and beat Oregon. And I got that wrong. It wasn't in Eugene. It was in Portland, but still a heck of a win. You guys agree with that? Do you care about the rankings? Did either one of you give a shit at all about the rankings?
I mean, I think it early on in the season, it doesn't play that big of a role. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, you as a coach know you're not as good as it. Yeah. And it's kind of, you're not as good as people think. And sometimes you may think you're better and you're not, and you use that as an advantage. But I think as the course of a season goes and you're part of that top 10, 15, top 25, it's something that you hold your guys accountable. You should be proud of it because you're one of the best teams in the country. But I think early in the season, especially in these first month in November, you get through the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It starts to sort itself out early, and you can start to tier it a little bit where you're going to start finding some teams that are a little bit better than the others. And then as the season goes, some guys will get some momentum in conference play and they'll start to climb. But I think as you get through Feast Week, Maui, to me, right around Maui, you start to figure it out. Get through the ACC Big Ten, you start to get some tiers. There's some teams that are clearly head and shoulders by some of their great wins. And I think Houston heading to Maui this week will be very interesting. They're in that field with Oregon and St. Mary's. It's a great field. But Houston is heading into that thing. Boy, I wouldn't want to play them on like no prep. That first day is over, second day. I don't know if I'd want to see them as that Maui thing continues to unfold. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not playing for the championship next week in the Maui Invitational.
I'll tell you what, guys. I mean, one thing kind of not off topic completely, but sort of, was, again, being at these games at UCLA, at Gonzaga, just it furthering my opinion of the fact that, like, these neutral site games, most of them, like, I don't like them. I mean, I like the matchups and everything, but when you get there in those crowds, and you guys both coached two of the best arenas you will possibly find. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think it's true. Assembly Hall is top 5. And I think McHale probably top 10, if I had to say.
I put UD Arena in the Cintas Center right up there as well.
Yeah, I mean, these environments are what makes college basketball. And we keep leaning further and further into these neutral site games. And I don't like it. I just don't. I mean, I'm going to see 2 great days and 4 really good teams this weekend at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Purdue, Villanova, Carolina, Tennessee, 4 top 20 teams. But I'm not nearly as excited as I was to go to obviously see Villanova, UCLA, and even though Texas Gonzaga was not a good game. I mean, the build-up, just watching those students sprint in. I mean, it's what college basketball is all about, and it's what we missed all of last year. So I don't know how we can change it, guys. And I don't know why it's gotten to a point where more teams now want to play in neutral site games rather than play home and homes. You guys have a take on that?
Well, Jeff, remember, Arch and I are 2 great examples, right? The Big Ten went to a 20-game regular season schedule. Yep. So you think about it, you're a coach in the Big Ten, you're going to play 2 of your conference games before Christmas. When you have a young team or you have a transition year, let's use Tony Bennett as an example where he has guys in different roles for the first time. They're going to get better, but 2 of his games before Christmas are ACC conference games, right? 2 of your games before Christmas at Arizona are Pac-12 conference games. That's number one, that's 2 less games you have a chance to schedule. And you have to be smart too. Developing confidence. Each team is different. As much as we're rewarding BYU right now, I think one of the things they're really relying on is great returning experience. Some other teams right now that don't look the part, If you catch up with them 8 weeks from today, maybe like, wow, have they gotten better? Well, of course, because they had a lot more new faces. But the one thing that nobody can deny is the importance of these early season games. They're tremendously important for NCAA tournament seeding, who's going to make the tournament and who isn't. And you watch a team like BYU beat San Diego State, and right now they're leading, Oregon by a large margin in Portland. Those are two great victories before they even hit conference play. I'll also hit on this, Jeff, because I think it'd be unfair if I didn't. I recruited Alex Barcelo to Arizona, and Alex was with us for 2 years at kind of a tumultuous time for us as a program. And at the end of the day, he made a decision to leave us and go to BYU, and it was the best decision for him. His style of play, the dynamics, and where he went to was a better overall fit for him as a player. If you look at what he's become an all-conference player. Watching him play a little bit tonight against Oregon, he might be one of the best guards in the country based on what he brings to his team day in, day out, night in, night out. And he has experience. He's a great shooter. So, everybody talks about that transfer portal as if it's evil. There are examples sometimes, if it's done for the right reasons, that a change can benefit both parties. And I think, watching Alex grow at BYU, I'm really, really happy for him and his family because he's a great kid and he's really turned into a terrific player.
Did he shoot it as well when you recruited him and when he shot 47 from 3 last year? I think it led the country.
He always could really shoot it. He never quite got comfortable in a game situation for us. And it was my fault as much as any. It was the role that he had. We were kind of going in between the 1 and the 2. And the way we played, there was a big difference between being the point guard and the 2. At BYU, I think there's not as big of a difference. He's freed up to shoot. He plays with a great amount of confidence. And look, the role that he has is a big one. So he doesn't have to look over his shoulder at all. Some guys, if they look over their shoulder, that's actually a good thing. That brings out the best in them way, right? Some guys, if they look over their shoulder, they're never going to quite be as comfortable as they could be. And I think watching Alex play at BYU, it's a real credit to Mark Pope and his staff, how comfortable he's become. And again, experience, a tough team to defend. BYU is off to a great start.
So Duke freshman Paolo Banchero tonight had 10 points and 8 rebounds in a win over Gardner-Webb. They killed Gardner-Webb. That wasn't the story, though. The story came this morning when the Raleigh News and Observer broke a story that Michael Savarino was arrested Sunday morning for DWI. And in the car was Paolo Banchero, and he was in the backseat. Savarino happens to be Coach K's grandson, who is a walk-on at Duke. Savarino did not suit up tonight. Paolo started, and again had 10 points and 8 rebounds and played 26 or 28 minutes or something like that. You guys surprised at all that Paolo played?
I mean, I'm not there. And I think you have to trust that Coach K, his administration, and his staff, clearly have their arms around the situation. Every single coach is going to go through a situation where they get that phone call and it's not good. And you have 2 good kids who probably did something they weren't supposed to do. And at the end of the day, it comes across the ticker. That's what you try to educate your guys on all the time. Obviously, the scenario with the DUI or the DWI is not a good thing. The Ruggs situation is obviously very fresh on everyone's minds, very dangerous, but at the same time, not there. You don't know the dynamics around the situation. And, I think you have to rely on their administration, their program. They have those answers. So, but everyone's been there. And every situation kind of has a different story. I've been there a number of times, and sometimes it ends poorly for everybody and everyone suffers. And then there's other times there's some hard lessons to learn, but everyone can kind of move through it. But I do think good guy, Sean said it all the time, good kids make bad decisions sometimes, man. And at the end of the day, these guys just have to understand that they're the ones that come across the ticker. The other 15,000 DUIs that went on Sunday night across America aren't announced. And, inevitably, especially playing at Duke, there's such a light on you, but you you got to rely on your administration and your program and what's going on. You have the information. So it's hard to comment on somebody else's situation. They're all different.
And the other part of that, Sean, the other part that I did not mention was it was Paolo Banchero's car that Severino was driving. So that's the other dynamic added to this. And that's why they're both going to have court dates, because what the police were saying, at least according to the newspaper, was that Paolo shouldn't have let Severino drive his car intoxicated.
Yeah, I have two really strong thoughts on it, Jeff. One is the hardest thing to do as a coach is to get the truth and the facts. Get the facts, get the facts, get the facts. You're so used to, as a coach, to doing it yourself. Hey, let me solve this problem. These kids are under my watch. I want everything to go perfect for them while they're in our program. And when something doesn't go perfect, how can I fix it? Look, at that point, you're relying on the right people to get the truth and the facts. And then once the truth and the facts come up, then, you don't make this decision by yourself. I would imagine not even Coach K, who's been at Duke for so long, is going to make this the one and only voice on the decision. They have an administration, they have protocols. This is much bigger than just the singular incident. So I'm sure that together they'll end up making the right decision. My second thought on it is, and Arch is right, great kids can make a bad decision. I think great kids, not good kids, but great kids, they're at college for a reason. And as much as we want them to be robots and see every situation for what it is and make the right decision, sometimes they make mistakes. When they make a mistake, you hope that, everybody is safe. In this situation, it seems like everybody was safe. And then sometimes the best way to learn from it is to learn by making the wrong decision. It's a much more powerful lesson when you have to go through this tough period of time. And my hope is that everybody, especially those two guys, come out on the other side of this smarter, better, and down the road, they'll have a similar situation and they'll end up making the right decision then. So part of college, it's still learning. It's not to prevent mistakes. It's not to be perfect. It's to learn when you make the wrong decision, to grow from it. And when you're 18 years old or 19 years old, trust me, decision making, there's plenty that you're going to have a do-over if you can when you're later in life.
Listen, I don't know if you guys will admit it, but I made that mistake when I was younger and probably older than they were. So you get fortunate in those situations. And, the hard thing for Kay has got to be, it's his grandson. It's his grandson involved in this one. Like, I know if that were my daughter, damn right I'd be pissed, and damn right I'd be disappointed in the fact that she were doing this. Because what we don't want more than anything, I think, is for our kids or our grandkids to make the same mistakes we made, right? I mean, that's kind of like the first thing we're doing as parents is like, don't make the mistake, the same mistakes we made. So luckily they're okay. Hopefully they do learn from it. And we saw Paolo out there, and Severino, hopefully we'll see out there soon. All right, we got a question in the chat from Dave, who says, and this is a good one for both you guys. Can the Big East keep it going Thursday night with Xavier going to Ohio State? I think it's
Ohio State goes to
going to Xavier to the Cintas Center. So Ohio State didn't have Justice Suing last game. He's dealing with an injury.
He's struggling, Jeff. He's
they
struggling.
are. Yeah.
Justice Suing has really battled a groin injury for about 6 months.
Wow.
And I think, they've really taken a cautious approach to it.
Yeah.
And this could be one of these things that they have to manage, which unfortunately for them would be tough because I really believe he is such a key ingredient to what they're doing. They've also had injuries to Kyle Young, and they're trying to protect them. Their depth is better, but going into Cintas is not going to be easy with that crowd, as Sean obviously could tell you. Plus, I've stated this a number of times, when the Buckeyes show up to anywhere in the state of Ohio on the road, it'll be maybe one of the hardest things that they'll encounter. But, Chris Holtman took a team to Cincinnati a few years ago when Mick opened up the new arena there on campus, and he came out of there with a win. He's got a great temperament, and his team will be prepared. That game will go down to the wire. Xavier has as good of a chance to probably win it as Ohio State, but I don't think Ohio State will be in awe or will get overwhelmed by Centos.
I mean,
the job, Jeff, that Chris Holtmann has done at Ohio State is very, very underappreciated and understated. Yeah. It might not be underappreciated by the people that matter the most at Ohio State, but nationally, I think people would be surprised if you pulled up what he's accomplished in his brief time as the head coach at Ohio State. This game on Thursday, it's one of those games we just finished talking about. You know, when you go to Xavier, play a true non-conference game at a historic arena like the Centos Center has become, you know, it's going to be a game of great meaning. It's a shame that Fremantle is not going to be playing. You know, yes. He's an all-conference player for Xavier. He's an all Big East player. I mean, he's 6'9". He could play anywhere in the country, and they have to go almost through their entire non-conference season without him. So again, that's the other part of this November and December, staying healthy. You know, some teams will get more healthy in January and February than they were here early on. Unfortunately, that's where Xavier's at. But I think it's going to be a great game. I'm going to go with the home team there. I think, you know, you think about the statement the Big East would make to have Seton Hall go to Michigan,
Providence,
Xavier win, and then Providence go to Wisconsin and win the road game they won last night. That's what happens. All of a sudden, you want to know why Big East gets as many bids as they ever
have. That's why. 100%.
November and December. I will not cave into the deal of college basketball begins when conference play begins. Nope. Most of the huge decisions and who's going to make the tournament have already been made by who played who won, who was healthy in the non-conference seasons that these programs have had.
No, you're right. That's when the conference resumes are made. That is absolutely true. And you're right. Like, you get off to a good start. If you're the Big East, you put yourself in position to get 5 or 6 teams, even though at the end of the year, you might not have 5 or 6 that are really worthy, but you got off to such a good start that you already got those resume wins, and then they beat up on each other. And maybe a team that shouldn't ordinarily get in, you know, Providence.
The Big East is set up to have a remarkable year right now at the pace they're going, because if you look at the ACC and the Pac-12, they've already combined over a dozen losses in the non-conference in those 2 leagues.
A lot of buy game losses.
Yeah, too. buy games. And I think that's what the success of the Big Ten has been so strong the last few years. The non-conference has been, clearly almost 80% win percentage in the non-conference for the league. Then you go into the league and you go 8-12 or 9-11, and you get a bid because it's so strong coming in. And I think the Big East right now has some really, really.
All right, now pleased to be joined by
Providence, Seton Hall.
Yep.
I could be missing a couple.
Well, you know who's tomorrow.
Well, I think St. John's is at Assembly Hall, and
That's
then
right.
Michigan State is at Butler, and Ohio State is at Xavier. So there's still 3 to go in that Gavitt Games crossover. But if the Big East would hold serve, with UConn obviously being pretty strong as well, I don't think they're in it this year, and I don't think Villanova's in it this year. You're looking at, what are they, 10 teams?
Yeah.
You are arguably right now are looking at 70% of their league is fighting for a bid. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and Villanova is going to be fine, and I think UConn's going to be fine. Like, those are probably your, those might be your 2 best teams in the league anyway. So they're not going to need that. But teams like Marquette getting that win, you know, the hard thing for me is always, okay, Marquette got that win. All right, they got it without Kofi.
No Kofi.
Right. So, like, how much stock do you put in that one?
You'll put a lot of stock in Illinois' resume. That you won't knock Marquette for winning the game against Illinois at home come the end of the day. But Illinois' resume without him, you'll definitely take a peek at that game, because arguably that's a big difference for their team. I think that's why Andre Curbelo struggled so much. Things were hard for him last night without the big fella being that easy catch, easy roller, easy outlet. He had to do a lot of work, and I thought he overdid it just in terms of trying to make some things happen. And it really inexplicably just, kind of went to Marquette because of it.
Boy, I couldn't believe what I was watching, to be honest, because Curbelo's a guy that I know he can be wild, but the one thing he can do is handle the ball. Right. I mean, he is a point guard.
But, I think the difference in some of these guys, and he's probably going to learn, he's in a new role and they're trying to shut him down. He's no longer running around out there with Io on the side of him and Kofi under the basket. He was the guy they tried to stop. And you know what? He didn't adjust. He tried to continue to force that action. And he ran into some trouble, but I give Shaka a lot of credit. Those dudes played really, really hard for him. They resembled some of his teams at VCU because of the press and some of the changing defenses he didn't play at Texas. But adding a guy like Daryl Marcel to that fold, he's an instant winner. And don't be surprised if Marquette, after that win, doesn't take a huge jump with their confidence as they continue to go. Shaka got a big shot in the arm. They earned a great win, but going forward, them with a new coach, a new team, new pieces, boy, that's a believer. They go back to practice that next day. It's a lot easier to listen to the coach when you get that win.
Hey, Sean.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was thinking about Kentucky when we were talking about them coming off of their loss against Duke right at the beginning. And one of the things we talked a little bit about is the importance of Wheeler to Kentucky's team.
Yeah.
If you're paying attention and you're watching these games now that the first one has ended and you watch them develop and improve, his assist rate, I believe he led the SEC in assists a year ago while he played at Georgia. He's picking up where he left off. I think he had 8 assists again tonight.
Yeah.
He's settling in, and when I watch them play, I think his meaning to their team is going to be really important towards them actually hitting their ceiling, becoming the best team that they can become. Right. Because as good as Ty is at doing a lot of different things, you always want Ty to be freed up to score some.
Right.
And having Wheeler out there with him, I think allows Ty to really truly be the player that he is. And then we're actually taking for granted Oscar. I mean, the rebounds right now. I mean,
he had 24 and 16 tonight, and I think he has 56 rebounds in 3 games.
That's insane.
I mean, he's averaging over 15 rebounds a game, and one of the games that he's played has been against Duke. But you think about Oscar and that backcourt. I think Kentucky is going to keep getting better and better. They will be in another stratosphere as a team comparing to who they were last year. It's not even close.
What do you think Hugs is doing as he watches Oscar come down with 56 rebounds in the first 3 games?
He's not watching.
Is he doing this? Is Hugs having a cold one?
Hugs isn't watching Kentucky play.
No.
He's worried about the Mountaineers.
Yeah, good point. How much do you guys?
His characteristic is he's not worried about much. Matter of fact, let me bring this up to you. What does a guy like him have to do to be in the Hall of Fame?
It's insane.
Insane.
I've been saying it for years. I think everybody in the industry, every coach feels the same way. It's so funny because, like, for people that don't know Hugs, I think they have the wrong perception of him as a person, as a human being. Like, I remember the first time I ever met him, it was a 94 Final Four. I was a student. Arizona was in the Final Four, and Bill Clinton was coming into the arena. So they stopped everybody. So I'm standing next to Hugs, and I'm a student, and I'm intimidated as hell. Like the most intimidating people that I had met at that point in my life were probably like Karl Malone and Bob Huggins. And then when you get to know Hugs, like he's a big teddy, but now he'll screw around with you. Like he did it. I think I had a game sideline at West Virginia. It was a Kansas-West Virginia game. And he totally like made fun of me during the actual interview on air, which is great. Like, but Hugs is just a guy that everybody likes in this industry. Every single media person, every single coach, pretty much every single player. Yet he has this kind of, I guess, this reputation that goes back to Cincinnati. And I think that hurts him ultimately.
I don't know what hurts him, but I know this. He's one of the greatest coaches that our game has seen, to think about the places that he's won at.
Right.
You know, he's never been in that blue blood stream. I mean, West Virginia, Akron, Cincinnati. I mean, those three terrific places to coach at. I know if you asked him, he would tell you he had great support at every stop. But you throw in Kansas State there for a brief period of time, you know, he's done it at places that aren't always favored to win their conference, especially when you consider what he's also transitioned to as the head coach at West Virginia. When West Virginia went to the Big 12, there were a lot of people that counted them out, rolled their eyes, said, what a terrible fit. You know, he's been in the Big East with West Virginia, but it just really doesn't matter. He's going to win. And just to see, I believe he's fourth now all time in wins. I think he tied Coach Knight, or he either went one more win above him. So, you know, if you're fourth all time in wins and you've been doing it as long as he's been doing it at the places that he's done it at, the players that he's had, I mean, I think he's very, very deserving.
Every coach will probably say this, but if Kenyon Martin doesn't get hurt, he clearly, by a landslide, has a national championship under his belt.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. All right, before we conclude this, let's go to one of the stars of the night, a guy that's gotten a ton of publicity over the course of his young life, and that is Memphis freshman Amani Bates, coming fresh off a win against St. Louis earlier tonight. All right, now pleased to be joined by Memphis freshman Amani Bates with 16 points tonight in a 16-point win over St. Louis. Amani, this was your closest game of your three. You're 3-0 now.
Yeah.
You've kind of gone under the radar as a team a little bit so far. What have you learned so far in these 3 games in your first 3 in college?
Really just being in college, you got to like stay together. Like if you stay together, everything gonna go smoothly. But really just learning the game. Like, you know, being around the coaches I have is just like a blessing, because I'm learning from people that have actually lived the life of being in the NBA and like coaching the NBA. And, you know, just being around them every day, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And, you know, just learn the defense, the offense, just try to stay ahead on both ends.
So I know there was the thought that you were going to play point for a minute there, and it looks like now you're going to play more off the ball, some on the ball, but probably more off the ball. What's your role been like so far, and what's been the toughest adjustment?
The inside game, when you talk about Purdue, and that's where it starts, that's where it stops. Because if you can't deal with it, it's going to go inside 100 times in a row. And I think Zach had 18 and 12 and 18 minutes, and Travion had 20 and 13 and 20 minutes. And, Wright State is a very good team. They're going to compete to win the Horizon. But that onslaught tonight, if you can't deal with it, you're going to get hammered pretty good. I think it'll be very interesting to see North Carolina go up against them this next game, because they don't have an answer if Baycott gets in foul trouble as well. And, to me, it's going to be an unrelenting post presence for 40 minutes with Purdue. There's no time off when you play them. They got other guys too. I think Caleb First had a great game tonight as a freshman, had a double-double maybe. Obviously, Jaden Ivey's good. But, the thing with Purdue is you hope that they don't make threes. When they have that spacing around those guys, you're going to have to take something away from them. And I think a few years ago when they had Haas in there, it was the same deal. And if they shot threes and made them, they were almost unbeatable. If they make threes, and that's what you're willing to give up to try and take away the post game a little bit, they're going to be hard to deal with. But I'll be very, very interested to see them play this weekend against those teams. And then they have a unique matchup with Florida State coming up in Mackey. Florida State's different than they have been in the past, but Florida State's the type of team that won't let them run their stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But Purdue, they have the most unique attack that anyone in the country has that you have to guard against.
In a quiet way, Florida beating Florida State the other day, that was great win. I know Florida State had really had Florida's number over the last, I believe, 6-7 years.
Yeah, that was a big win.
Florida to beat Florida State. That's one of those, again, early season non-conference wins that will go a long, long way towards helping the Gators be a part of this year's NCAA tournament. I always look at Purdue from my vantage point because I've never been in the Big Ten, and clearly, Matt has had so many good teams over his time there. But when they have that guard that can get his own shot, they're going to be system driven. They play. They set screens, they run their stuff, they execute. Whatever they do, they execute. They execute on defense and offense. But you still need to have that player that when it's tied up, he can kind of go get his own shot, right?
You got that.
And I think that's what Jaden Ivey gives him. And not only do they have the two bigs and they have experience and they run their system, but you also have that one guy who can put it on the floor and beat you, get his own shot when it really, really matters. And, that combination could be the difference for Purdue this year, not just being really good again, but being great.
Hey, you guys both watched the Gonzaga-Texas game the other night?
Yeah.
So Chet obviously didn't do a whole lot in that game. It was all Drew Timme. Chet didn't need to do a whole lot because, Timme had 37 and absolutely torched him in every way possible. I talked to Chet the next day for a while. And one of the things I told him was I was actually very impressed. He didn't force anything. As a kid that could be the number one overall pick and probably go one or two with Paolo being the other one, he could have wanted to prove on national TV with everybody watching why he was worthy of being a top pick. And instead, he really did defer. They were winning. They could have easily, he could have jacked some threes. He's 7 feet, right? I mean, he could get some threes up any which way he wants, but he didn't. And his body language was really good. And I worry about him playing against, like, Texas came out, especially in the second half, and they were physical with him. And they banged, and he got a couple early fouls, and, he had 4 and he was to the bench. But what were you guys most impressed with, or what were your thoughts of watching Chet Holmgren?
I'll take this one, Arch. I'll start this off. Here's what I would say. Drew Timme is the best offensive player in college basketball. He was the best offensive player last year. Jeff, last year on a team that went wire to wire, number one in the nation, lost to Baylor in the national championship game. He shot 341 twos. That is an insane amount of 2-point shots. He made 231. For the record, that's 68%. He makes 68% of his 2-point shots. I mean, he was so dominant in that game that, in all due respect to Chet, and he is himself a very talented player. But when you're talking about winning now, if Drew Timme was hurt and didn't play in that game against Texas, I don't know what stat line Chet would put up in that November game against Texas. His gift is Drew Timme. Drew Timme was the best offensive player in college basketball last year. He's the best offensive player in college basketball this year. I have not seen too many players on offense be a better, impact the game more than Drew Timme does. You think about Christian Laettner, Tyler Hansborough. I mean, all those types of guys, keep naming them, but you have to put Drew Timme in there. I mean, the guy
plays as hard as Hansborough, Sean. Sean, he plays as hard as Tyler Hansborough, and he's far more skilled than Tyler Hansborough.
Yeah, but I don't even mean to dismiss Chet, because I know the talent, where he's going to be and the career he's going to have.
No, you're right. You're right. He's got Timme to protect him almost in a way.
If you talk about, college basketball, November and December, games being important, some of Gonzaga's wins here that they get early on, these quality wins, it's going to be because of Drew Timme, not Chet Holmgren. And they'll continue to develop. Mark Few's done this as well as anybody who's ever coached the game of college basketball. Chet will keep getting more and more comfortable, and they'll play together better and better. But man, I tell you what, Drew Timme, scoring with his left hand, his right hand, he scores on rolls. He shoots a teardrop from 12 or 15 feet. He's an improved free throw shooter. He's a good passer. He has unreal confidence. When you watch him play, his confidence just exudes, from him. It just, you can't help but to be confident being his teammate. I'm so impressed with him as a player that I thought he was the storyline.
Yeah, I think the other thing that was very evident as we watched the game was how great of a point guard they have right now in Nembhard.
Yes.
They have as good a point guard play probably as anybody in the country, and he's surrounded by these bigs who can create offense for him, finish, do the whole thing. Nembhard, to me, is a difference maker. I mean, he is no slouch at all when it comes to the importance of what they're doing. But Chet's impact as he keeps going, I think is teams are going to have to guard Drew Timme with their biggest, strongest player. And Chet sometimes is going to get 6'5" to 6'7" foremen. And I think as time goes, you're going to start to see him pick on those little guys with the lobs and the high lows and stuff. But I think he's going to stuff the stat sheet. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't average, 10, 8, and 6 blocks or something like that. But his impact on the game is going to come in a lot of statistical areas. Shot blocking being something I think that he's very unique at in the way he blocks shots. He can change the game. How he impacts the game on offense, though, teams are going to have to decide how they want to guard Drew Timme, and he's going to be the beneficiary of sometimes probably a much smaller player where he can get them in and around the rim and on the glass at times.
All right. Well, listen, Arch, Sean, thanks for joining us tonight. Field of 68 After Dark. We're going to actually go to, on our way out here, we're going to try the Amani Bates interview again, the Memphis freshman. We're going to see if we can get it right this time. And here he is, Memphis freshman Amani Bates after the win tonight against. All right, now pleased to be joined by Memphis freshman Amani Bates with 16 points tonight in a 16-point win over St. Louis. Amani, this was your closest game of your three. You're 3-0 now.
Yeah.
You've kind of gone under the radar as a team a little bit so far. What have you learned so far in these 3 games in your first 3 in college?
Really just being in college, you gotta stay together. If you stay together, everything gonna go smoothly. But really just learning the game. Being around the coaches I have is a blessing because I'm learning from people that have actually lived the life of being in the NBA and coaching the NBA. And just being around them every day, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And just learn the defense, the offense, just try to stay ahead on both ends.
So I know there was the thought that you were going to play point for a minute there, and it looks like now you're going to play more off the ball, some on the ball, but probably more off the ball. What's your role been like so far, and what's been the toughest adjustment with your role?
Whatever really coach needs, but being on the ball and off the ball has helped my game like a lot since I've been here. Like I look way better as a player when finding my teammates, and then my game gets to going, my teammates get to going. And then whenever I need to score, like coach will come up to me and like he'll tell me like, all right, let's get it going. And I just try to do as much as I can just to help my team win. All I want to do is win.
Has the most difficult part of it, has it been, the physical part of it? Obviously, we talked about it. You reclassify, you should be in high school right now. You're trying to put on weight. You've done some of that. But has that been the toughest part, just the difference physically going from high school to college?
Not really to me, because I've always been playing up like my whole life. So I'm kind of used to like the physicality like part. Like that was something that I did growing up that helped me now, like to be ready for this. Cause like I always played up. Even when I was in 5th grade, I would play with seniors, like, just to get used to like being able to play older people and like not being like afraid or anything. So really just learning the offense and the defense, like you said, it just make it 10 times easier no matter like how strong they are. Because when you 10 steps ahead, it's like it's a mind game, it's a mental game.
When I talked to Penny in the preseason, the word he used was sacrifice. I use chemistry. He said sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. That's going to be the key to this team. How has it been so far with kind of everybody figuring out that, hey, it may not be my turn tonight. I'm going to defer and it's going to be somebody else's tonight?
Really, we just trying to like all win. So we really are just trying to do the right thing and in a positive way though, because we don't want it to be in a negative way because now the team's not happy. So we really just all want to be happy and like win the game and play together and enjoy every time we step out there together.
So we've heard a lot about Paulo. We've heard a lot about Chet.
Yeah.
You've kind of gone under the radar here, like I said, not just as a team, but as an individual. What's that been like for you? That's not normal for you.
Yeah, really, I feel disrespected just because of my age. That's what it is, just because of my age. So it's like I feel disrespected, but at the same time, it's God's plan. And, I'm going to keep following that and just keep trying to get better for my team to win. That's all I'm focused on right now. I don't care about nothing else.
Well, you got some good games coming up soon. So I think you guys will continue to be tested. It was, Tennessee Tech, NC Central, St. Louis, kind of stepping it up each game, but it certainly gets tougher from here. Amani, appreciate you joining us. Field
Yes,
68 After Dark. Good to see you. And
Yes, sir.
hopefully
Nice
I'll
to meet
see
you.
you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, man.